In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in Black and White emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, family. Welcome to America in Black and White, where we elevate voices that shape systems and build legacies. I'm your host, Charles Zachary King, and tonight's episode is a deep dive into the future of work, the power of data, and the heart of leadership. Our guest is a nationally recognized thought leader whose work sits in the intersection of people, policy, and purpose. Dr. Troy Jerrel Brightson is an organizational psychologist, human resources executive, and educator who's transforming how we think about workforce strategy, leadership development, and inclusive innovation. As Assistant Division Chief of Human Resources at the U.S. Census Bureau, Dr. Brightson leads enterprise-wide initiatives that shape the federal workforce of tomorrow. He's also an adjunct professor mentoring the next generation of HR and business leaders and sought after keynote speaker who brings clarity and courage to conversations about equity, culture, and change. Tonight, we'll explore his journey, his insights, and his vision for building organizations that are not only data-driven, but human-centered. This is a conversation for anyone who believes that leadership is both a science and a calling. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Troy Brightson.
Good evening. Good
Hello,
evening.
sir. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I am great. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. We've been on the books for a while now, so it's very exciting that the time has come so quickly.
Yes, sir. So is there anything you'd like to add before we jump into the show?
No, I feel like I could have written it myself.
So what I want to start with is because you've got a very unique career, and I think one that's very people centered. And what I'd like for people to get an understanding of not only the work that you do, but the importance and why you do it. So I'm going to start with workforce modernization and your HR leadership. Can you tell us, what does workforce modernization mean to you in today's context?
For sure. So we are in an ever-changing environment. I mean, if we all see it, right, in our personal lives and our professional lives, we are just in a mid state of change. What we sometimes call that is a VUCA environment. It's volatile, it's uncertain. Um, and so it's ambiguous, right? We don't know what's always coming next. And so when you're dealing with those levels of change, when you have organizational strategy that's seeking to change, but you're also trying to change people, that's where workforce modernization exists, right? Where we understand our organization strategy and our goals for profits, or for purpose for those of us in certain kind of nonprofit spaces. However, we still need to make sure that the people's skills, their goals, and their aspirations align to what the organization needs. I mean, when we see that synergy amongst the two things, we're able to reach really productive organizational design and structure in a place where we're starting to see profits or purpose align with our goals.
So when it comes to the actual people, that you actually work for, that is the workforce itself, how is it that when it comes to workforce modernization, what is it that you do that directly trickles down to the actual individuals?
For sure. So I try to work directly. I always tell my staff, let's have a top down, bottom up approach to change, right? So we want to understand what are the leader's desires and goals for the future. What, because that's that manager, that leader's role is trying to say, hey, I want, the Census Bureau or the government or Apple, whatever, wherever you are, tomorrow we're going to be doing this, right? And they have this goal, but they don't really say how you're going to get to from point A to point B, right? That's the team, that's the staff, those are those middle managers, that line level employee. And so then we start to meet with them to say, okay, what skills do the workforce need? And I love to take a skills based approach. I'm a little bit of a competency junkie. And so I like to assess employee skills and say, hey, if writing is what's needed for us to be great journalists in the future, well, then how do we improve our writing proficiency? If data is what we need to be able to inform our customers, how do we improve our data literacy as an organization?
So, when it comes to all of these strategies, how do you come up with the strategies that are needed when you're elevating into these new directions or new areas? And, how do you execute them?
So that's where we take a theory. I call it theory-based practitionership. I don't call it that. We call that as theory-based practitionership. And it's where you really try not to leave what you've learned in rigorous academic settings for organizational psychology, whether you're an HR, you've done HR studies, human resources studies, organizational development, organizational behavior. There are so many different disciplines that I think all come together when we start to talk about organization strategy in human capital strategy. However, we really want to start to look at, is this a change problem? Okay, how can I leverage change management theories, models, and concepts so that I can identify phenomena as it happens in practice, right? Because as humans, if we can start to find models and theories to group the things that we see, it allows us to identify strategies that we can see that work to move people forward. And so that's the best that we're doing. They don't always work, right? So you might have this beautifully written scientific paper that says people do X, Y, and Z, and then you start getting with the real people. X, Y, and Z doesn't always work in your organization. Culture comes into play. Human dynamics, interpersonal conflicts, different things happen. But as we take all that literature into play, we really start to look at the inner dynamics of the team and figure out what toolkit works best for getting that team towards the desired end state.
So, how has your role at the Census Bureau shaped your approach to HR strategy? Ladies and gentlemen, let us find out what is happening here with Dr. Brightson. Let's try to fix this technical issue. Dr. Brightson?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Apologies for that. It said that my connection was lost. Um, can you repeat the question we were on? I apologize.
I'll ask you, how has your role at the Census Bureau shaped your approach to HR strategy?
Yes. Census, as I was saying, is a very dynamic organization. We have an amazing mission that really impacts the entire country. It's the only constitutionally mandated bureau in the Constitution for counting the number of people in the country one time, right? And so that count of enumeration happens every 10 years, in which we really find it important to ensure that the people in the community are counting the people from their community, right? People open the door to people who look and feel like them, right? And so as we've tried to create different strategies for recruitment, you're trying to shape the strategy for an organization that changes in a 10-year cycle, right? So 2001 versus 2011 versus 2021, those are similar years for us versus 2009, 2019, and 2029. We're at different phases of the decennial cycle where the human capital needs are different, the skill sets are different, from IT when we're building systems and programs, to data when we're looking for data scientists, statisticians, and math stats, to when we're literally going to door hiring millions of enumerators once the census day starts. So it is such a complex mission and goal that is there's never a dull moment. So it has literally allowed me to use so many different pieces of industrial and organizational psychology theory and literature to get done what needs to be done, from design and selection assessments to, again, change management competencies. I have such a passion for the different types of work that I've been able to finish at Census, and that has helped us to have a really dynamic strategy.
So, what are the biggest challenges facing federal agencies in workforce transformation?
Repeat that, please.
What are some of the biggest challenges facing federal agencies in workforce transformation?
So right now for us, sticking away from what we see in the media, of course, we're definitely struggling with skill sets. We're struggling with trying to have the like data expertise is a really a big issue for us. Trying to ensure that we have the wages to pay and retain staff has been a different challenge as well. And it's as far as also IT, trying to compete in a world of cloud and AI, and having those skills inside to grow different products. We're not as agile as private sector organizations for clear reasons as far as security and the types of data that we have. And so again, in a world that's changing so quickly, the government has struggled to change as rapidly, and to make sure that the staff are able to keep up as well, because we have other challenges, legislation, changing administrations, that sometimes then still change goals and strategies that at one point you might be moving in a certain direction, and then you have to change that direction based off of different inputs.
How do you integrate behavior science into workforce planning?
So I would say that from my perspective, workforce planning is a behavioral science. The way that I try to approach it, we definitely don't ever take the people out. We try to always create interventions where the people are able to um, really assess their internal and external environment, and look at the things that need to be done to to be successful, right? We tried to make sure that they're not operating in a vacuum, but that they are aware and cognizant of what's coming their way, because sometimes that can be hard to do when you are, operating in your day to day. And so when we're able to do different types of exercise, find shared understanding and meaning around the work, and talk through challenges, talk about things that are struggle points for the team. Then we kind of parking lot them so that we can say, okay, guys, here's some things that you said are issues in the current state, and what can we do to overcome those challenges as we move forward?
Well, that's actually interesting because what I wanted, I think when we think about that as a whole and how you guys do this with the workforce, at the Census Bureau, when you've got so many people that you've got to account for, and you've also got to, I guess, put them in different categories, however that works. I know it's something like that.
Right, right.
And so, just in doing that altogether, how does that actually bring us to the workforce modernization part? And so when I say that, I'm talking about like with all the upgrades, especially for like what's happening in tech and all those other things. How do you guys actually bring us to that point?
Slowly but surely, day by day. Seriously. So we have times in the decennial cycle where we get to be a little more free spirited, I might say, where we have time to ideate and to create. And then we have times where we get into the cycle and we say, okay, what do we have that's working? What can we put in prime time to move forward, right? Because the day is coming, whether we like it or not, right? That census day will come, and the workforce, these incredible, they're incredible people. I've really been blessed to work with so many different directorates and census and directors, and they are incredible minds, incredible leaders. They tend to overcome any adversity that comes their way, and we get it done is what we always say. And so we there may be plans that maybe in 2010 that they may have wanted to do, and then they might start to happen in 2020. We definitely recognize, as far as modernization, in the 2020 cycle, that we needed to increase, that data science was really coming up as kind of like a catchword, and we're a data agency. What I mean? We're one of the largest data agencies in the country, and we really knew that we needed to look at how we were going to attract this workforce. And so we worked hand in hand with the Office of Personnel Management. We were an integral piece of having a new 1560 data scientist series created for the federal government. It was the first time OPM had created a new job series in I think over 15 to 20 years. And so we were really proud of that work. And then we were able to lead different commerce-wide and government-wide data literacy programming, data literacy selection assessment development, as well as training and development programs. I even was, for a short time, a chair for the Department of Commerce's data maturity assessment group, where it was called Mad Skills, where we were literally looking at different skills-based approaches for developing data science and data skills at every commerce agency, because it's so critical to how we inform the work that we're doing and look at the mounds of data that we have available to us to make decisions.
So with us having the federal government, and I know that there's like several agencies, can you tell us like, are you guys like separate, or do you work in some shape, form, or fashion, mutually exclusive with all the data that you guys have that you put out to each agency? How does that go?
Um, from my capacity, I would not say that that's something that I could speak on.
Okay,
Yeah, it's not something for me to speak on for sure.
okay. What's your approach to building inclusive, high performing teams?
So my approach, I am probably sometimes more old school than I like to say. My staff, I'm probably, I definitely would say I have moments of tough love, but I'm always in the paint. Like, I will sit on a call with my team as much as they need it. I will pull up the research. I will get them what they need. I will put you on that stretch assignment, because once showtime is ready, I'm in the backseat. I'm not a leader who tries to say, "Oh, thank you, Charles, for doing all this hard work. Give me your slides and let me go present it." You know what I mean? I don't do that. So when they know, when they're talking to me, it's kind of in the hot seat, because I'm gonna ask them every question that no one else is gonna ask, because you're gonna be ready, right? Like, it's kind of like your mom said, when you go outside, you're not gonna embarrass me, right? You're gonna have everything you need to get in front of a senior executive, to get in front of a town hall meeting, and get in front of all the regional directors, and you're going to be able to deliver. And I tell my students the same thing, right? I'm really hard on them about the quality of their writing, about their diction, and the way that they're able to articulate theory and policy, because one day you're going to be able to say that you're in, someone's C-suite, right? Giving this knowledge, or this advice, this consultation to someone. And at the end of the day, this work is someone's life. If you give bad competency data, someone is now looking at their employee differently. What if they decide to make a decision of termination based off of your data? And 2 years later, you come back and say, "Oh, my bad. It was, I guess I was tired that week." You know what I mean? Like, that's not okay. It's not okay.
Oh my God. That's
Yeah,
some real serious effects for something like that, though.
for sure. And I always look at it that way, right? Like, you're talking to supervisors, you are helping them to paint the picture of the way they see their environment, their workforce, and they're the leader. And so, we can help talk people through challenging conversations one-on-one, with their staff. But we can also, we at the end, we are influencing, right? We're an influence. And so when you insert yourself into that environment, you have to be very, very careful about how you push and pull, right? Because it has rippling effects.
So, as you talk about this, and with our audience that's listening, can you translate to our audience what do they need to think about? What do they need to look forward to and thinking about workforce modernization and how it can affect them?
So I would always make sure that if you're an individual contributor, and even if you're a leader, um, we all have great responsibility. And when I say that, I mean, as a leader, we have to be realistic about the demands that we're putting on our team, right? We have to be realistic about the state of the workforce, and be compassionate with them about their experience. I think that we need to, as individual contributors, make sure that we feel comfortable with the change that we're going through, right? Does it align to your career aspirations? If you see your job going through a major data reformation and you hate data and you don't want to do that, you can't get frustrated, right? You got to kind of find some push and pull and say, am I in the right place? You know what I mean? And how do I get myself in the right place? Because what will eventually happen in a major modernization project is not that AI is going to take your job. Are you going to learn how to use AI to make you better in your job, right? And then be able to create that same type of productivity and output. It's kind of, if we go back to the 70s and you say, well, she's using a calculator, and you're just saying you don't want to use it, well, eventually the person with the calculator may have been able to get more productivity, right? They're still using their mind and their brain to create. And so I use those examples just to say we have to make sure that we can't be the stick in the mud, right? You don't want to be that person in your organization who's just not changing or not creating solutions for modernization, because in the change management world, we call that resistance. And then that becomes resistance to change, that someone is now managing to figure out, well, how do they bring you on board? How do I communicate my resistance in a way that I'm still trying to help the organization march forward towards our goals? That to me is a productive way, right? Hey, I don't like this, but could we try it this way? Okay, I see what the bigger picture is. How can we do that? Hey, you're telling me you want me to do skill A, B, and C. I need this from you, right? I see the training that they're giving everyone else, but I'm a little stuck on this piece here and I need a little extra help and support. Tell your leaders, communicate with them how you need or what you need, how and what you need in order to have their vision be fulfilled. That makes you a totally different type of player, I think.
So, how do you balance mission goals with employee well-being?
Yeah. That can be really hard sometimes. I'll be completely honest with you. Because the organization keeps rolling.
Okay.
You know, I mean, listen, I'm a psychologist, so I tell people this all the time, right? I think it is important for us as individuals to manage our well-being, right? Organizations have tools, time off. Maybe you have an employee assistance program. Maybe you have FMLA. Maybe you have different things. If you never use them,
Mhm.
there's a little bit of whose fault is that, right? So because we're like, well, I have to go and I have to go because if I don't go, blah blah blah. Well, we make up, a cascading story of what might happen next. Um, it's okay if this year wasn't your best year. That's okay, right? For every organization is not the same, but for the federal government, we're on a 1 to 5 uh, performance scale, right? A 5-point performance scale,
Okay.
and while we may always strive for a 5 year, if you've lost your mom and you've lost your dad and you've been struggling with health, this year, who cares if you get a 5? Like, I'm sorry, can I, like, you know what I mean? Like, at a certain point as a human, you have to say, I gave the best that I could give in this year. I'm doing everything I'm trying to do, but maybe I don't have above and beyond in my belly this year, right? My spirit doesn't offer that. And as long as you are meeting your performance expectations, well, then that puts you at minimum performance, right? And that should still be difficult depending on your job, right? I don't think any of us have just easy jobs. Um, but I guess I say all that to say again, as you manage well-being in work, I think you have to be realistic with self. And I think again, be sure that you're aware of the resources that are available to you that your job does offer. Make sure that you're taking them. I myself this year have had to take those breaths, had to take those steps back, and make sure that I'm caring for myself. You know what I mean? As a Black man, as a parent, as a leader, and saying, okay, I need to breathe. Like, I'm overwhelmed. I'm stressed. It's a lot of projects. I don't know how we're going to get all these done. Um, and I'm communicating that with my leadership, not as a sign of weakness, but to help with prioritization, right? And to set expectations. Hey, I can do these 6 projects, but this project doesn't even have a budget. How am I supposed to create something with nothing, right? Which happens a lot and sometimes in the government. So
Definitely. Let me tell you something. When it come down to it, I can say, being a former federal employee at DOL, I know exactly how those things, like, they can go from 1 to 100 real quick. I'll just put it like that.
for
And
sure.
just understand it. Um, what role does data play in shaping equitable HR policies?
I am no longer allowed to answer that question.
Okay.
And I want everyone to hear that and to take it for what it is. I'm not allowed to answer that question.
Okay. Can you share a success story from your work in talent pipeline development?
Absolutely. So, previously in my career, I was able to use workforce data in some really exciting ways, and we still are, and we still can. But when we're looking at pipelines, we're trying to look at who is the most qualified. never were we trying to find a pipeline that could be filled by all people with a disability or all people who are of one ethnicity. That's just not the case, right? We're looking for skills, and we're looking for where we can find these skills from diverse pipelines and populations. And so we were able to start doing some really great work after having several years of longitudinal data from our succession planning surveys. And these surveys allowed us to capture critical information from our leaders, and to identify who our high potential employees were, and to then still start to talk about who our high potential employees are. Like, and what do they look like? And where are some gaps in our recruitment? Where can we find more people, right? Are we over recruiting at Bowie? Are we over recruiting at Yale or Harvard? Oh, hey, we forgot about the University of Nebraska. They have a thriving, mathematics program, right? And so different, for everyone, I made that up just for the sake of an example, but that is the concept behind the work that we've been able to do. And we were able to even begin to sit down with leaders when a vacancy became available to share the data that we had to start to inform the recruitment conversation, right? Hey, should we be recruiting from within? Should we be recruiting from outside? Do we have enough talent within? Do we not have enough talent within? Being able to look at certain positions and saying, hey, you're still, you're still in this role, but who do you have that's going to take over the show, right? Should we start looking now, before anything happens, right? And so it really allows you to take stock of your talent and your team, and to be able to have preventative conversations, right? It's like a life insurance policy in a sense, right? We're not saying something's wrong, but let's talk about it before something is. Because I would always tell people our biggest goal was to reduce the time it takes to backfill a position if it becomes vacant. Right? We're not trying to get anybody out. We're not trying to pre-select anyone. We just want to know that if it gets empty and we have to go and fill it, we're sure that that vacancy is going to be packed with quality talent that can help maintain our continuity of operation.
How do you approach leadership development in large, complex organizations?
Yes. We're working through that now. I'm really challenging our talent development team. The chief learning officer reports directly to me in my current capacity. And we're talking a lot about, okay, why these classes? Why this curriculum? How is it going to align the strategy? Tell me why. Like, why? It worked last year. Why should it be here this year, right? And it creates uncomfortable conversation, right? Because as a team, we're changing, and we're changing the way we think about work, and we're doing it together. Again, we are blessed to have a cadre of assessments that we do take on our leaders to know and get a pulse of the types of skills that they need now and in the future. And we use that information to guide curriculum development. We also are trying to look at the industry and our peers, right? Which I'm a large advocate for conference attendance for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're an IO psychologist, if you're listening, or if you're in other realms. It's good to be connected to your people, right? Like, to hear what they're doing, to hear what successes that they're having. I remember one year we launched our resource sharing program, and we had this great module. And then I went to a conference, and I'm in a room in a round table with executives from Johnson and Johnson and other companies, and they're like, yeah, we did too. We can't get anybody to put roles in it. And you're just like, wow, us either. Like, it's not, sometimes you feel alone, and you have these great ideas and you've marketed them, and you're wondering, well, why isn't the workforce using it? Why isn't anybody? I thought everyone would love this resource sharing program. And so we, you know, it's good to be with your peers. So whether you're a scrum master or you're a project manager, taking time to go to conferences, it's a kind of iron sharpens iron in very real and actionable ways. And those have been other ways that I find that we've been able to start to propel our leadership development program, whether it be with micro learning, with different mentoring programs, with different we're trying to design new senior executive development programs so people have opportunities to rise into the SES. We're really trying to create a robust and tier program where people are constantly developing their leadership skills from the time that they enter the Bureau until the time that they reach senior leadership.
So, what's your vision for the future of public sector HR?
My vision, I would like us to be customer driven, research based, right? Consultants. I mean, in the public sector, it's hard. There's definitely always an HR, a transactional side to the work. Talent acquisitions and following the 80-day hiring policy and OPM rules for selection. We can't get around it, right? That's what it is. However, I think that there's so much opportunity to infuse AI, to infuse other tried and true methods that are in private sector that we're not using in the federal space. And that's been my goal. We have really in this year done some good work with bringing AI into different things. We're testing, so we haven't launched any of that. But I would love to see us be more agile, be more flexible with certain things in the way that we approach the work, which for me, that reformation is going to take a lot of skills development at the employee level. Because what I can also say is we're not training our workforce. It's not our workforce's fault. We don't, we're so busy learning 5 CFR in the federal government and the rules that it sometimes overshadows, well, how do I be a practitioner, right? And infusing and using both is the type of employee we want, but it's hard. I'm at the top, and I still sometimes might be really good one Monday with my theory, and like someone's like, Troy, no, like 5 CFR says we can't do that. And I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. You know what I mean? Like, so it's a dance. It's definitely a dance.
So, as our audience are listening right now, tell our audience, what is Dr. Brightson's motivation?
My family. I definitely believe as the people that we have to get back to family. We have to get back to share resources. We have to get back to owning and building and developing, but not as individuals. You know what I mean? We make jokes about other cultures, sometimes, and we made it funny. Whereas at the end of the day, that's the key to success, right? Like, we don't have to kick our kids out at 18 just because you're grown, right? It's more so, hey, when you're 18, how are you going to major or grow into something that can come back to us as a resource? And so I'm doing this to show my boys that it can be done. And to hope that they're going to bring it back into the pot and that we collectively continue to create Black excellence as a family and as a unit. And then maybe I won't have to work.
Look, hey, that's the way it go, right?
My mom says, once an adult, twice a child.
Let's transition over to your work as an adjunct professor. Can you tell us what inspired you to teach industrial and organizational psychology?
So I actually forgot over time that years ago I had prayed to become a PhD, right? And it's funny that I found my notes about it after I graduated. So I so I'll table that for a little bit. So here's it's in the background that I always wanted to be a PhD at one point, but I forgot. And so I was going through my career. I started out in hotel management. I was managing large properties in Washington, D.C. with Hyatt hotels, and I loved the work. I hated the work-life balance. And so I I couldn't do community service. You never knew your schedule, you know what I mean? And the hours in hotel management, you're fighting over who worked the most hours, right? That's the best manager. And I just couldn't get behind it. So, um I when I transferred into training and development as a contractor for the federal government, I had no idea what industrial and organizational psychology was. Again, hotel management undergrad. And so I ended up meeting my supervisor and my boss, who they had degrees in IO. Um, and they encouraged me as I was trying to get better with training and development. And I got my master's from the Chicago School of Industrial and Organizational Psychology. And I finished that in 2015, went back to work. Now I'm in it. I'm doing competencies, I'm using data. And I got to a place in my career where I was alone and people were like, "Hey, you're the expert." And I was just like, "Who? Wait, that happened this fast? Like me?" And I felt like I still needed support. Again, working at Census with statisticians who understand data, they're quick. And I can't be like not on my feet trying to do assessments and data collection with these people, right? They do it all day for the nation. So that became some of the influence that said, okay, I think it's time to go back. That's one influence. At the same time, I have Dr. Renee Roman in my ear, and she's like, "Troy, you can always come back." And my husband at the same time saying, "Well, I'm in school, you should be in school." And so I'm like, okay, I'll go back. And I just next thing I knew, I was reaching out to Dr. Roman to ask her, I again knew her from my master's program, just to ask her, "Hey, I'm thinking about getting a PhD. What should I do?" Unknown caller. And she literally says to me, "Oh, you can start this semester." And I'm like, "Oh, like what? What do you mean?" And so I started. And so that was in 2019, and I finished in 2022. And it was a grueling experience. But once I got through it, I immediately knew I wanted to teach.
Wow.
I knew it.
So, how do you bridge theory and practice for your students?
So I try to incorporate a lot of assignments that require the students to research business, right? Because IO psychology is this great intersection between understanding the business that you're working for and then understanding human dynamics, right? In psychology, understanding motivation theory or different concepts there. And so we do a lot of case studies. We do a lot of group discussion where I try to ask them to pull on their experience in real life. Okay, how do you take that situation you had at work and now put it into this paradigm, right? Rethink through that, right? Rethink how this may have worked out. How could you have done that project differently by fitting it into the buckets of Cotter's model? How could you look at Satter's model for change at the individual level and understand that people have an experience of loss when change happens? When you take something, if I go and take that paper from you right now, it's gonna elicit a feeling from you. What's this boy doing? You know what I'm saying? Or why he got my paper, right? You're gonna feel something. And and so we have to recognize that that's what happens to people at work. I'm taking away your duties. Why? Well, I'm not doing it well enough. Or am I, like what types of feelings get elicited there? Well, I'm going to give you this new work. Oh, why give me that work? I don't want to do that work, and when we give it to them, it's going to take them time when they finally get back to a place where I'm comfortable. I could do this. I am capable. It's not always because they hate their supervisor. It's not always because they hate their job. It's just because we're humans and we experience change in these ways as humans. And so me and my students, we try to talk and work through that. I try to train them to see the paradigm in practice. That's what we try to do.
So help us to understand a little bit more. Let's break that down just a little bit when we talk about theory. Help us to understand theory.
All right. So theory is all right. So man, you put me on the spot. I need this. Now I need. Where's Chat GPT when you need? No, I'm just joking. so, so we have theories, and it's the way that we view or see a particular phenomenon. For all the other PhDs on the line, don't shoot me for this definition because that's not perfect. But we have theories around man, like what? Like we have theories around so many things, like organizational behavior, or because everything is not a theory, right? So I'm trying to make sure I get to one, and it's not popping in my mind right now. But we have change management theory, and then we have change management frameworks that we derived from a theory, right? So the theory is how we view or see the world. And then we have done research to start to say it wasn't disproven, right? Because when we do research, if we all go back to when we were in school, we have our hypothesis and we test that hypothesis, right? And so we have our H1 and our null. And so I did something and it happened. There was a change, or there was no change, or the opposite happened of what I hypothesized. And so when we start to have general theories, these are the big rules that we all can kind of agree with. Kind of, I say, because as we get into our PhD work, for every theory, there's a counter theory. You don't have to agree, right? We're always in this conversation around how we create new knowledge and understanding around these dynamics. They don't stay the same. Even I, having graduated, I'm still required to continue to read and to search in the realm, right? To make sure that I'm current and understanding things properly. But so we have different types of organization theory, different types of change management theories, or again, motivation theories that we can lean and rely on. And as we take those theories in those major concepts, we tend to get aligned and bought into different frameworks or methods that we can tend to use, right? Or even on this call, you can kind of see some of my affinities, right? I've mentioned Cotter, who has models for change, and Satter, who has a model for change at the individual level, which also is really derived from a grieving cycle, right? But we've seen it in action in organizations. We and I really try to push my students, my staff, and myself to recognize, as humans, it's very easy for us to fall into a recency effect, right? What's the last thing I read? And everything I see is in that theory. So it's very important that as theory-based practitioners, you wouldn't want to go to your therapist and every time they see someone, they're like, oh, bipolar. Oh, definitely bipolar, right? So that's dangerous. So we have to be very careful that we are really looking at the gambit of industrial organizational psychology and really trying to step back and say, okay, what am I seeing, right? And making sure that I'm reading and making sure that I'm not providing an inaccurate diagnosis to what I'm seeing in practice. And so we have a lot of diagnostic models that IO psychologists can use when we go into an organization to try to help us see. You have Weisbohr's 6-box, which can help you look at how different systems, McKinsey 7S's, these different models help us to see the interconnection between things like skills and structure and strategy. And so we use those things to then say, okay, what's really at play here, right? And I think it's good in IO psychology to come in with a team, because we want to kind of like, well, what did you hear? What did I hear? Okay, I heard them say this, right? Because we're taking that web and we do it with the customer, right? Too, because it's their world. To make sure that they agree and that they helped us create this diagnostics model, and that they agree with what we decide is a good intervention for creating the desired change in the system, as that we may have wanted or anticipated.
So, what trends are you seeing in how students view leadership and work?
Trends and how students see leadership at work. So my last semester class, I was afraid half of the time they did not even. I'm like, do these they even like me? They're probably like, he's horrible, and that's because we're all just people, right? And it's like there's a piece of where, just like in our parenting, you want your students to want to hear from you, right? You want them to want to receive from you, and your professor, especially at the graduate level, we're not the end all be all, right? Excuse me, I come in letting them know, guys, we're going to go over this chapter. Remember that even one definition of this chapter, like we talked about back to theories, was someone's whole life. Someone spent their career trying to make sure that training meant what training means, or that a needs assessment is what a needs assessment is, and these are the ways to do it, right? And so when you're going chapter by chapter through your curriculum, it is still awareness, right? It is not, you are never going to get at the full body of literature on every subject that you are introduced to during your time there. And so as I try to incorporate my students to those things, you start to see how they view you, right? Because as a teacher, you're a leader in the room, right? So sometimes you're like, did you guys read today? Right. And other times you start to see, especially when they are on topics that they're extremely passionate about, when they're able to link it all together. And those are the aha moments that you're just like, okay, you guys are going to be really good at this. You know what I mean? Like, just don't get too full of yourself, right? You can't say, oh, I'm Dr. Brightson, I'm all knowing, who gonna check me? You know what I mean? Like, it's more so, it's more so, I've learned how to find the information and I'm not afraid to go get it. Right. I have a new client, I know how to find the information. I'm not afraid to go get it. And I do think that they're in a very good position that once they learn how to be critical consumers, that they're exceptional researchers. They're like they have Google their whole life, and they have ChatGPT, and they have and even to my older students who are on, right? You're in a classroom still, though, with younger students who have had Google and who have had ChatGPT. They know how to research. I used to tell my oldest kid, you have that expensive phone in your hand. You shouldn't spell anything wrong because if you just take 2 seconds to use it, right, to push yourself forward, that's what I think we're seeing with these new cadres of graduates, though. The kids that are taking 2 seconds to use the immense volume of what's available to be deadly, right, in a positive way, right, to be, to use that in really good ways. I think they have some skills to really make some really profound change.
Okay. How do you mentor students who want to enter public service or HR?
I start with really trying to help them understand the vehicles they have to get in. Right. I mean, I think that's the biggest barrier, right? It's entry. If you can start a career in public service, it's a wonderful career. I think there's a tinge of safety. um,
Yeah, but
and
also overkill.
correct. And you have to be sure that I'm trying to mind my words. If we so but I really try to encourage them to pursue it. I think so many people, there's so many different agencies and so many different missions that it's a very rewarding career. And IO psychology is needed in the federal government because of some of those things, right? And but I find myself again with my students really just trying to make sure they have a way to get in, right? Because most times I'm not teaching at universities where I have a high percentage of students who maybe did military service. And so without that veteran's preference, you're really trying to help them figure out, okay, your recent graduate programs or PMFs, which are actually no longer available, unfortunately. So there's going to have to be new ways in that they are able to, enter federal service. And sadly, I do think it's going to be a little challenging for the short time. I think we're going to work through it, and hoping that our administration definitely has good suggestions for how that might happen. Thank you.
That was wonderful. They should send you out as a spokesperson. Because there's nothing good come from them folks.
Thank you.
What's your favorite topic to teach and why?
Okay, so far I've taught organizational behavior, training, and organizational development, and now I'm about to teach change management. And I'm really a geek about all of it. My favorite probably has been training and organizational development was definitely a good one for me. I think organization development and like the diagnosis of it all, it can really start to bring all the different areas of IO together. And I didn't take OD coursework until my PhD. So it was very interesting at the University of Baltimore to see it in a master's program. But I think it's good because I would tell all of my students, like, look at how we're talking about how the I don't want to call it the issue, right? But the pain point may be in so many different areas. It might be leadership. It might be the reward system. It might be, the training. It might, right? And so once you figure out how to look into those different worlds, you have to leave organization diagnosis and now use your skill set in that area, right? If I find out it's a rewards issue, now I need to look at how is this staff motivated and what are the reward systems that are in place. If everyone's saying they want monetary rewards, but all our reward structure are, swag, in coffee cups and different things, well, the employees may not be feeling like they're being recognized, right? And so we might have to look at a rewards and recognition program. Sometimes you're giving monetary rewards and people just want something different, right? Because already when we look at different theories on needs, they change. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes our needs change at different times. And so I think that OD was really fun because it opened up so many doors for conversation. Again, though, it was my first time teaching it. So there'll be a whole different interview where I could talk about what I would do differently to kind of share that information with students in the future. But I definitely think that they got with it, and their final projects really showed me that they did start to understand the coursework. And so I still stay in contact with them. So it's exciting when they reach out and they're like, Dr. B, I did this, or I'm working on this, and kind of reach out for that support.
Tell us about the rapport you have with your students and why is it so important if it's really, really great?
Yeah. I like to believe we're cool. I definitely, but with a bar, right? Like I don't need you to think I'm your friend. I'm not. I want you to feel pushed. I want you to feel challenged. I want you to walk away saying that my writing may not have been great, but Dr. B pushed me to write better, right? I do feel like with my staff sometimes or people that I've hired, I've noticed where I'm like, did you just turn this into me? Am I supposed to read this? You know what I mean? Like, and so I kind of give that story to my students. And I'm like, if you have advanced education, people want to see that, right? Like, you can't just push your way through school and not truly try to digest what's happening. And again, it's the skills. It's that you know how to research. It's that you know that your paragraph deserved a topic sentence and that there should be supporting details, right? Like, in that you should not have comma spices, right? Like, I mean, like, little thing, I know this sounds bad, but sometimes people are forgetting how to write. And it's like, it's not going anywhere, whether it's your PowerPoints, whether it's a presentation to a senior executive. In IO, you're constantly required to write, white papers or final products that do go out. And so I would just hope that they remember that I held them to the mat, and then I give them my number. And again, I get excited when people, they send me pictures of graduation, right? Like, to feel like you were a part of that journey, and in that moment they remembered you, right? When they were graduating. To me, that's the only job well done I really need, right? Is when they do that, or when they come and ask for career advice, because I feel obligated, right, at that point, to make sure that they are successful in their career to the best of my ability, right? Like, I don't just have a pocket full of jobs that I can hand out, but I do try to make sure that they feel prepared and that they feel supported as they transition.
So let's transition over to some of your work as a keynote speaker. What's your core message when you speak on leadership and culture?
So honestly, most of my presentations have been on succession planning, and to an audience of peers. So it's generally geeky. We're talking, it's more so about data collection methods, about data dissemination, but I do truly try to show them, again, like we talk about building that gap. I really try to take them on a journey of, hey, I started here at the theory, right? And here's how we rolled this out to senior executives, how we rolled this out to line level supervisors. And to me, that really does become leadership and culture, right? Because how do you make sure that your intervention isn't sat on a shelf somewhere, right? A nice, beautiful succession planning report that no one read, right? A nice, beautiful competency profile. No one used it to inform how they built staff. And so those are the types of things that I really try to share when I'm in public. Is how, because I remember, again, prior to the PhD, going to different conferences, roundtables, offsites, and when people will say, "Oh, well, we're doing workforce planning, and you know, it went really well," and I used to say, "Well, how though? Like, well, we use workforce data. How? Like, how did you do it? Like, someone give me, like, it felt like it was a secret all the time, right? No one gave the methodology. No one could, like, there was nothing to repeat. And at the time, I felt alone, and I felt like, am I doing this wrong? Do I not have enough? And again, like, as I shared earlier in the call, that was some of the things that pushed me to a PhD, because I was like, well, I don't know, maybe I'm not getting it. Like, what needs to happen differently than what I'm doing? And when I learned about, in general, quantitative and qualitative methods and research methods, and then I'm like, wow, I've done some of this at work, but how are some ways that I could do it better? And so it's really action-based research is what I tend to do at work a lot of the time. And so, yeah, those are generally most of my talks.
So when you're doing those presentations, um, can you tell us, like, what do you go into those presentations expecting as a result, and also what you are going to deliver? How do you strategize on doing that, or is that a strategy?
For sure. Because as you said, like, what am I gonna go and what's the result? With that, every public speaker, guys, I think we have to always look at our audience. I can't tell you how many times I've taken the same presentation and had to remix it just because, okay, senior executives don't care about the methodology, right? Like I talked about before. When I'm going and sharing these things with leaders, I'm really trying to kind of hit them with the gusto of what can come out of their effort. How can this be used, to not be a waste of your time, right? Like, these leaders don't want their time wasted. And whereas if I'm again going to an audience, a fellow IO psychologist who I know can get it, then I'm trying to make sure that they leave feeling like, hey, I had a similar project and I might need to do some of what Troy said, right? Or that we can start to get a conversation going where even I leave feeling like, man, I didn't think about that. I'm going to add that to my project, right? So that as a body of like-minded individuals collaborating, we're energizing each other, and helping each other move forward around pain points that we may have, because again, sometimes you feel on an island, and then once you start sharing and you start talking, you recognize that other people are having similar shared experiences. um,
I got a couple of comments and questions here in the chat for you. The first one here is from Dr. Whitty, and he says, Troy, what is the name of your organization? And are there any virtual or network opportunities for people who study IO psychology?
So I work for the United States Bureau of the Census. We are currently on a furlough and a hiring freeze. And we also are no longer allowed to have remote work in the federal government. So we don't have any of those types of opportunities. But if you follow me on LinkedIn, when we do hire in my area, I definitely always make sure that I post those positions. On LinkedIn. I do. I always post them on LinkedIn.
And we have this next one is from I don't know if I'm saying this wrong, so please forgive me if I get it wrong. Is Myo Coco Knows, and I'll put it on the screen. Agreed. Everyone hired on should have growth potential so that we can hire within for higher ranking positions and then hire in new folks for those entry levels.
I agree. I mean, we should always seek to develop from within. However, there is there's some really good literature I think you could look at with if you do some keywords about build versus buy decisions. There are different scenarios and situations where you should hire external talent, right? There are other situations where we should be hiring from within. What I will always say though is we should always consider internal candidates, right? And I do think also as internal candidates, we should always be open to wherever our career is going to take us, right? We don't owe the bit this is Troy Brightson. We don't owe anyone anything. You know what I mean? And if it's good for your career, that is a decision you should make. I do think that sometimes we uh, become beholden to people and things, and we don't owe them that in business.
And I have another one here from Dr. Whitty. I'll put it on the screen. Dr. Troy, what guidance do you have for those who are struggling to land a role in IO psychology and as an adjunct instructor?
I will say that I know it seems funny that I'm going to say this. I understand because I have had the same struggle. Um, Networking. That's been the advice that I've been getting from my mentor. You know, we can put out the applications. I have had some insight from individuals who have said how they've leveraged Chat GPT. But I would definitely say that, trying to make intentional connections. I don't know the phase of, where you are with, the role that you're trying to get into, whether it be entry level, whether it be research or, those different things. But I think it's really important to try to get on the line with people and try to figure out who where they are, what they're doing, because connections matter. Networking matters. It definitely can get you in the door to different things, more than sometimes just a blind application, unfortunately.
So, how do you prepare for high stakes panels or keynotes?
Um, I, I try to be read. I try to stay in the in the industry, right? As we say, stay in these streets. I try to because I'm kind of I'm not good with notes. So my staff always laugh at me. I don't write what is it on PowerPoint? I don't write talking points.
Right.
Um I freeball I'm just like okay. I just kind of go off the cusp. Um as long as I have a general format around what I know that I need to speak on. And so that has worked for me as an individual. I do not suggest it for others if it's not your if it's not your natural inclination. I think in my private life, I'm an actor, and so I get comfortable once the lights come on, even though I'm nervous before. So unfortunately, that's my way. I don't take notes.
Okay, I got another comment or question here in the chat. I'll put it on the screen. It's from Courtney Washington, Dr. Brightson. What were the factors that helped you pursue your doctorate degree versus your bachelor's degree at Virginia State University? Was it a big difference?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, obviously, coming out of high school at 17 years old, I knew that I wanted to go to college. I knew that I had to go to college. It wasn't an option. However, when I got to the Virginia State University, um, I I really just wanted to not be poor anymore, to be honest. Like, can I be completely candid? Like, I just so I wanted to like make money, and I thought that I was gonna go to school to be a dentist. And then Dr. Shackelford was helping me with my like selections of Virginia State and trying to get in, and I wasn't good in science. So he was like, "You're not. You need to pick another major." so, and that's where hospitality came in. And when I told you I found those notes, when I graduated from Virginia State, I was looking for PhD programs in hospitality management in Florida,
Oh,
and
wow.
I was struggling to find employment after Virginia State, and to the dean of my department, Dr. Williams, she was like, I finished school, I had good grades, I finished Virginia State early, and she was like, no, you have to go to this interview. And she got me on a panel for Hyatt Hotels. So again, when it go back to Dr. I can't remember the name, but the previous one about how to find jobs in IO, right? Like my professor opened a door for me. You know what I mean? And had that door not been opened, so many other doors would not have been open, right? So God's divine intervention, him having her sitting there to offer me that opportunity and to get that interview, changed my life, right? And so whereas when I was going for my PhD, Courtney, I really had to then say, okay, well, what am I doing now? I was looking at R1 schools because I knew that your PhD can be very facetious and people, there's like a uppityness about where you went and, the quality of you as an individual based off of university, right? Like it doesn't necessarily make sense, but it's true. Um, and so I was looking to go to like University of Central Florida or some other schools, but again, here comes a strong Black woman who came to me and says, I think you're going to do well here, though. And you can start. And I prayed about it and I talked to friends and family. And it was just this undeniable door that opened. You know what I mean? I didn't ask for it to open. I didn't really seek it out in that way. I didn't go to her for that advice. I went asking for a letter of recommendation and got accepted into a school. You know what I mean? And so I think it's very important for those who are believers to watch as things manifest, to watch doors open. I forgot that I wanted to be I forgot that that was even a goal, to be honest, as I was just traversing my career until I needed it. And then boom, right? Like so many things happen based on my connections, based on who I knew. And I don't find myself to be the best networker, right? So if you're out there and you feel like you need to like network better, I do too. You know what I mean? I need to be a better networker. Charles could tell you guys a funny story about my lack of Facebook and LinkedIn etiquette knowledge, right? Like, so we all have growth areas, right? None of us are perfect. We're all striving and we're growing day by day, right? But iron sharpens iron once again. It's who, it comes into our lives that are able to make such profound impacts that really make a difference.
And Courtney has another question here as well. I'll put it on the screen. What self care advice do you have for those trying to balance work, family, extracurricular activities, etc.?
Um, my advice is to pray often, go on vacation. um, you know, this year has been a challenge for me balancing all three. I have experienced my own health issues not balancing them. And so, like I said, once again, it's very important that we talked about well-being earlier in the show, remember? And I kind of said that piece about like, hey, you have to make that decision. You know what I mean? Like you can't wait on your employer to make it for you. A part of their job is to get profits and make the mission be the mission. And unfortunately, that does make it difficult for them to say, hey, you go take FMLA, which is also illegal. So they can't tell you to do that, right? Like, so you have to make sure that you're checking in with yourself. I would like, I also do theater work. So I find that sometimes doing, singing and being in plays or musicals has been really helpful to me, but I have to be careful because it's also stressful, right? Like, so then I'm adding more to my plate when I'm already busy. So you have to find those places that give you zen, and make sure that you are seeking help in the Black community, guys. Mental health, right? Even if you need to seek counseling and therapy, it can be helpful as an outlet. And it's even something that I've pursued in this time to help me get through.
And so we also spoke about Black history, and I asked you, in your life and career, who has been the most influential person or persons in your life and career? You mentioned Dennis Covington, Dr. Ian Barrett, Veronica LaGrange, and Dr. Renee Roman. In what ways did Dennis Covington's approach to storytelling and cultural preservation shape Dr. Brightson's commitment to honoring Black narratives through his work?
Yeah. So I am a proud member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. And in 2003, I was able to join the Sigma Beta Club, which is Phi Beta Sigma's constitutionally bound youth auxiliary program. And so that is where I was introduced to Dennis Covington. He was our Sigma Beta Club advisor. And I literally to this day call him my father. Coming up in a home where I didn't have my father in the home, I was raised by my mom and I had my two older sisters. So there was always female influence. And when I was in seventh grade and started hanging around the Sigma Betas, this was the first time that I really ever had a circle of males to interact with. I'm not you don't want me on your football team. You don't want me on your basketball team. I'm not good at sports. So when I was able to join the Sigma Beta Club, it finally created that vehicle or that avenue where I was able to connect, right? With other males. And Dennis at the time was I think he was the comptroller for Charlotte Mecklenburg schools. So he lived in a beautiful home. He had, nice cars, but he also was sewing in to us as young men. I mean, he would come home from work and we would already be there, right? Like his wife would come home and say, she was like, oh yeah, honey, and she would look in the living room and we'd be there. Oh, make spaghetti. You know what I mean? Like she might have had some extravagant meal that she was gonna make, but we were there. Boom! Like they would pivot and they allowed us to be there, and he just sewed into us just with his presence, and just showing us that, hey, no, there are Black men out here who the narrative is not being a thug. The narrative is not, being a womanizer. The narrative is not, that's not it. This is what it is. This is what it can be. And this is what's available to you. And I needed that, at that time. And so it really paved the way. I think I'm not going to say I would not have been successful without it, but it definitely helped me a lot to find a synergy behind what I was doing.
I've got another comment here in the chat from Dr. Dennis Whitfield. He says, let me put it on the screen for you. He says, we have to be intentional in order to be work-life fit.
Yes. It doesn't just happen, right? Like, and that's what I said. Like, and it's about making decisions. Earlier on, I even talked about making intentional decisions about do you have a bunch of above and beyond, right? Like, guys, if you're opening up your own real estate company on the side, which you deserve to do, and you're manifesting your personal business, you can't work 15 hours a day on your other job. You know what I'm saying? So, like,
time in a day.
Right. So your time management is so important, and being able to, you can't work 15 hours a day and then think that you're always there for your kids. Right. Like, I mean, so we have to really start to look at who we are, how we're showing up in all these different places, and like you said, be intentional. We have to be intentional for sure. I love that comment. Thank you.
How did Dr. Ian Barrett's research on systemic inequities and historical trauma influence your academic lens and advocacy for restorative justice in Black communities?
So, interesting. I actually met Dr. Barrett at a conference, and we have connected as he's tried to help me. Again, as when I kind of said to one of the people who made comment about growing and finding roles in IO, Dr. Barrett now is the Chief Human Capital Officer for Colada Health in a healthcare system in upstate New York. And he's really been helping me to grow and to reach the next level of leadership in my career, and helping me to learn to be more polished and to try to network more. And so he is my current mentor, and he has sewn into me for the past 2 years. And so and it's so funny because we do talk about restorative justice in the sense of a lot of, different programs and designing leadership development programs that still take that lens. And so it's always awesome to speak with him and to watch how, in his role as a chief human resources officer, how he still keeps that as a framework for the way that he approaches the things that he does. And so he talks with me about that. We meet monthly. And so I know I would kind of say before, it was very hard for me as an adult to find a Black male mentor. And 2 years ago, meeting Ian, that changed, and that was Dr. Barrett has totally been a help to me, and I try to be that to others, right? And so everybody who's been on the call tonight, we always are at a place in our lives where someone needs our mentorship, right? And then hopefully we're getting it from a big sister or a big brother as well.
What role did Veronica LaGrange play in helping you connect ancestral wisdom with modern? Oh Lord, I can't. I get stuck on this word a lot. Pedagogy, especially in the context of Black educational resilience.
So Veronica LaGrange was the Chief Human Resource Officer for the United States Census Bureau prior to retiring. And she, oh man, she's so awesome. She's one of the only people, as I said, Ian's a mentor, and I get to see him from the outside. Veronica LaGrange, I got to work under her, right? I got to learn from her, train with her. And she left me so many gems, right? Like, because after a while at first I got to work with her and only see her professionally, and then over time I got to see the person too, right? Because as a leader, and she told me this, it gets lonely at the top, right? You can't show your hand all the time, guys, because people do still have recourse, and everybody's not gonna like everything you do. It don't matter who they're not gonna like every decision that you make. And so at first I'm like, man, she never gets upset. She never, she just is so precise with certain things and the way she handles things, until one day, months in, and then she finally called me like, kind of like, kind of, and I was just like, oh, she's a human, you know what I'm saying? Like, because it just was like, I don't know if I'm built for that job, right? Like, I don't know, like, how is she doing this, and so, she totally shows, I don't know how to word it, like, she was unapologetically herself. She was extremely knowledgeable and comfortable in her wisdom. She was extremely humble and able to take wisdom from her direct reports. She didn't try to fly ahead, right, and answer questions that we had to fix later. She would be like, okay, I'll talk about that, blah blah. Let me talk to and get us on the phone. Hey, handle this. Help me with it, blah blah. Let's sit with it. She would let me sit with her and write things. I'm like, oh wow, I like the way you worded that. I like the way it gave me something to aspire to. And that was so I guess I wouldn't call that mentorship. There was a lot of job shadowing that she allowed, which is also hard at that level when you're really busy. She didn't have to open that door. She didn't have to spend that time, and she did, and I'm better for it.
How did Dr. Renee Roman's legacy of civic engagement and policy reform inspire your leadership style and vision for commonly centered scholarships?
So Dr. Roman is the one, right? I first took her class. It was a 6-week summer course, and it was the hardest course in my whole master's program.
Oh, wow.
The former director for the Office of Personnel Management, like she was a former SES Office of Personnel Management, former SES for the Department of Defense. She played no games. Okay, she walked in the room. When I told you guys that I'm hard on my students about their writing, it's because no, 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 no. Right? Like, I mean, it was like, I don't even think I, I don't think I got an A in that class in the master's program. I think that was she really was holding us to the mat on having done your reading, knowing your reading, being able to articulately be able to present what you've talked about, and then turn that person into your dissertation chair.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So so then she's just like, okay, Troy, like, so wow. And she has a very, again, another woman who has a mild, like, she ain't raising her voice. You know what I mean? She's just gonna talk to you like, okay, so what brought you to that idea? And where is that in the literature? And you're just like, well, I
can imagine that.
So, and it's funny because I went into the PhD program feeling like I knew what I wanted to research. And at first she would keep telling me, like, there's nothing there. It's not there. It's not there. It's not there. And in hindsight, I found out it was because I wasn't speaking like a PhD, right? I needed to frame my argument. I needed to come to her, but she wasn't going to give it to me, right? I had to understand. I had to read. I had to come back to her again and raise the level and the bar on the conversation. And again, she made space. She was always going to accept that meeting invite. How you were going to show up was up to you, right? And so I show up. I show up prepared. Like I said, I know I don't write notes, but I pretty much study for everything. How many times did I ask you, are there questions? Are there questions? Are there questions? Because I probably would have been like reading and have like so many windows open, trying to just be fresh with what I was bringing to the argument, or into the discussion, and I think I got a lot of that from her, especially from an academically rigorous environment.
Can you trace a pivotal moment in your career where the teachings of these four mentors helped them reinterpret a key event in Black history through a more empowering lens?
This year, when DEI programs were removed, I found myself at a very scary place, right? As I needed to synthesize and understand the policy, synthesize and understand the cascading impacts of the policy, figure out how I was going to lead a team of psychologists and data experts to do human capital management without these things. A question I continue to ask my staff is, okay, well, what do APA ethics look like in the absence of this data, right? How do you do I don't know, differential item functioning if not broken down by, protected classes, right? How do you know if a selection system is free of adverse impact if you don't assess for adverse impact? What do we look for in talent development pipelines if not looking at the different types of applicants off of different, not that those were the end all be alls in pipeline development, but they were definitely a strong component to it. And my own ethics were put on the table. And so if not for their input, if not for seeing that it could be done, I know that it wasn't this, right? But insert whatever obstacle I watched them overcome, it's surmountable. With grace, with style, with competence. And I knew that I could do the same thing, and I'm thankful to them for that.
So, how do you integrate the philosophies of Covington, Barrett, LeGrand, and Roman when addressing the erasure of Black contributions in academic spaces?
So you get to bring your lens. You always get to bring your lens, right? And you have in the academic space, you have to look at so many things when you consume published literature, even if it's peer reviewed. So much peer reviewed literature is published and you don't even know the demographic breakdowns of the sample that they use, right? And that's a limitation to the study. So you have to look for limitations and then take from that study. It might still be a great piece of or body of work, but take from it what you can. I learned that from Dr. Roman, from Dennis and Veronica. I learned that, it still has to make sense in business, right? Research is a perfect sample. We do the best that we can to control everything. We all know that life is not controllable, right? Like, so so when you start to take research and put it into practice, you have to be open to some variance, right? And into some things going wrong. I might need to, you know what I mean? You get home and you may not have all the ingredients you need to make your favorite meal, but you make a real gourmet meal that night, anyway. And I feel like, that's kind of what I try to do with the research, right? It's like, let's sprinkle a little change. I think we need a little notes of, some ANOVA maybe in here. There's some mean group differences that we could assess. Like, let's look, and see how it applies because it fits, right? What we need to do and what we're trying to get done for insert whatever project. And so I try to be that sounding board for my staff when they take risk like that and try to be innovative because that's where change happens. And again, then if I am still in connection with my peers and say, hey, we did this great thing, right? Maybe we publish that, or maybe I give them ideas for them to do a more rigorous publication so that our work is accepted in an academic space, after it's been viable in practice. So because both environments, they want a little bit different.
So can I just ask you, in just on this wonderful synopsis that you just gave us, are you saying to us that application is everything?
I'm a practitioner, so I have to say application is everything. If I was a tenure track professor, I might have a different answer. But as an executive in the space, if it don't work, we don't want it.
So, in closing, um, could you please leave our audience with some words of wisdom and encouragement? Let them know how they can connect with you on your social medias. Give them the link to your website for things that you have there.
Yeah.
Um,
So, my words of wisdom, I'm excited to hear that there are some IO psychologists who are on the line, is to, stay close to the literature, right? I know we don't call ourselves psychologists, but you are a psychology practitioner. So it's so important that, again, people's lives and their careers are at stake with the information that you provide. And so you are valuable, and what you offer is highly sought after. Your expertise is needed. And so stay connected to the literature and find new and inventive ways to provide it to whatever the audience, teachers, principals, executives, you know, line level workers in food service. We are needed in every single industry. And so be creative with your job searches. I know that kind of came up as questions from the audience, is that sometimes you might be thinking limited in the different companies that actually are hiring for our skill set. And so it might not just say, IO professional, right? The posting might not say that, but it might say training and development. It might say transformation. It might say assessment development. So, in different things. Guys, I'm always open to connect on LinkedIn. That's where I'm the most active. I'm trying to be more active, but you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I think my LinkedIn link is in the bio. Um, but I'm Troy Brightson on LinkedIn, and so that's pretty much the only place you can reach me. So, or you can take my courses at the University of Baltimore. I'll be teaching change management this spring, so would love some extra students in my class so we can have some robust conversation.
well, before I say anything, I want to show you this last comment. This comes from Courtney. She says it's a great discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Washington.
I want to thank each and every individual for watching the show, but I also want to first tell you, Dr. Brightson, that I definitely appreciate you blessing us with your presence and giving us, feeding us a little bit of that process of learning some things about the new things with, about the workforce, because I think that's very enlightening going forward, because this workforce is going to be changing dramatically and dramatically over
Absolutely.
these next few years. And, with the work that you guys do at the Census Bureau, which I think people should also understand, is that, you guys do it for every 10 years for a reason. Because after these next 10 years that are coming up, there's going to be some real serious things that's going to be injected. So people need to stay on top of things. That's why I subscribe. So I will say, I want to thank you all for watching, and what we should have taken from Dr. Bryson is, that there are many, many things that we do from many different areas and perspectives that we have to learn to not only apply them, but we also need to understand what they mean. Because as we go forward in life, and we look for, and we have the expectations of many things that we want to have happen, we have to do our part in order to make those things come to fruition. He mentioned a lot about his mentors and what they meant to him and how they influence the way he does things when it comes to work and just life. We all need to think about, if we don't have mentors, go and find someone that you can trust that will be willing to help you to get through those parts and to help you to continue to move forward and build your life. So you all have a great evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. We will be back tomorrow night with another great show here on America in Black and White, where we will continue to color conversations on the canvas of America. Thank you all. We'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you again, Dr. Brightson.